To make these views look a little more presentable, especially when we start to document our work for our portfolio, you may want to type in here VG and turn off in the annotation category the section box by taking a check mark out of section boxes. See, it's still on in properties, but it won't be a part of your rendering. So then you might go back to graphic display options and do the same thing here. Okay, let's take a look at filters. They're filters that are in the visibility graphics dialog box. So let's type in VG, and the last tab there is called filters. And what we can do is we can graphically represent a category of information as a filter for rendering or graphics. So for instance, for all the fire rated walls, we want them all to be red. Or for any kind of floor area that's less than a specific square footage, we can render that a specific color so that we can visually see and represent that category. So here under the visibility graphics dialog box in the filters tab, we're going to go ahead and pick add, and in this add filters, we'll pick edit and new, so that we can create a new filter. At the bottom left corner here, we'll pick this new icon and type in fire rated and pick OK. And so now for the fire rated filter, we can establish a category for those objects that will take on the graphics. So we'll put a check mark in walls, and then over in the filter rules, we'll change, and you can see how many different things that we can filter. We're going to highlight fire rating, but you can see that you can select floors and look at an area. This one's going to be fire rating equals to equals, and then we'll type in 2, and I'll show you where to put that information so that it can screen it or filter it out. But it could be, less than or doesn't contain something. Got a lot of different options here under all of these categories with all of these filter rules. So what we did was we established a new filter called fire rated for our walls, and it's going to be walls that are equal to 2. So we'll pick apply and pick OK. But here we're going to highlight fire rated and then pick OK. And now we have a filter that's called fire rated. So for the fire rated walls that we're going to establish, and I'll show you where to change them to the 2-hour walls, we're going to change the pattern to like a solid red. So under pattern, we'll click on override, and you have several colors to choose from. I'm using red for a fire rated wall, and also we have all of these different patterns to choose from to graphically display that category of information. So I'm using red and solid fill, and also for the cut lines for that specific wall, we can change the color and the pattern to red. And now we'll pick apply and OK. Now we haven't established yet which wall will have that fire rating, so I'll just go ahead and select this wall And in the properties, we'll pick edit type, and I'm going to duplicate this wall so that it becomes its own style. It will be called here for the type of wall, fire rated wall, but more importantly is that down below under the identity data, the fire rating here output 2 for the 2-hour rated wall. So now the filter will look for that information. I'll pick OK and see that that wall is going to take on the filter color that we've established for that category and under those filter rules. A nice way to graphically display information in your model. I'm going to type in VG in the annotation category. I'll take the section box check mark out and pick OK so that we can maintain our graphics. Now let's take a look at creating a camera view. In the level 1 plan, we can go here under view or this drop down here to find the camera. We'll pick camera, and then the first point you pick is going to be the location of the camera, and then the second point as you pull your mouse towards your target will be the cone or the target of your view, and it'll automatically be created in underneath the 3D views and called this 3D view 1. So click in space and let's take a look at all of the different views that we have open. Under view and under windows, you can pick tile windows, or if you just rest your pointer there, you can see that it's WT. So if I type in WT, I'll quickly see all of the different windows that I have open. Close out of each one of these. If we only had one open, we could use this close hidden. But I'll go ahead and close all of these except for that one new view that we just created with the camera and level 1. I'll double click on level 1. We can now go to Windows and pick this tile window or WT to see both views. And then if you type in ZF, that would be for the zoom fit. So now we have the plan here in one view and the camera view in another. We can select here the boundary of the camera view and see the camera here in plan. If you wanted to pick it up in plan and change its location, you could do that. Or here in the camera here view, we can not only use the boundary to crop it, but there's a navigational bar right here that has this full navigational wheel. If we click on that full navigational wheel, there are tools in the middle here that are going to help us to establish a view. So I'll maximize this view. And inside this wheel, if for instance you hold your left mouse button down on look, you can move your mouse from left to right to kind of look through what graphics you might want to see. And also there's an up and down if you want to kind of adjust how high the eye level is there. A walk where you have to be careful because it goes really fast. If you move your mouse too far, you're kind of walking towards it and back away from it. Center actually establishes where you want the center of this view. And of course we still have here the typical zoom command and pan and orbit. Okay, let's go back to WT so that in the plan view we can add a few more pieces of furniture and some lights. So under Insert, we'll go to Load Family and scroll down here, especially to the Lighting folder, and then Architectural and Internal. And if you just use your arrow keys, you can see, basically you can see the name of it. So if you want to pick up a floor lamp or a pendant lamp, which would here hang from the ceiling, or a wall sconce here, we might want some of those for our lighting. Spotlights if you want to highlight something in the room. So you decide on your lighting. I'm going to go ahead and pick a floor lamp. You can actually hold your control key down and pick some of these other lighting fixtures, even table lamps that you can load. I'll go ahead and pick open. Some of them may prompt you to override the existing versions of these pendant lights. It might just be a duplicate of it. So before you pick override, make sure you haven't changed it. We will start to look at modifying families and establishing our libraries after in a few more modules. So we'll go back to here, Architecture and Component, place the component, and now we're ready to bring in our lighting. So you can pause the video and start to put more of your furniture in. I placed a table lamp on a table, and instead of using the properties to locate how high the table lamp was, because it ended up on the level 1 floor, you could select it and use the arrow keys to arrow up how high the table is there, and then take a look at your rendering and see how it's coming along. You can always change it in the 3D view to the realistic setting and have an idea of how it's going to look before we render it. Unfortunately, they haven't given us yet the option of modifying the elements in the camera view yet. If you're interested in putting a ceiling here at the bottom of the second floor, you can go to the first floor ceiling and then go to here ceiling and use sketch to sketch a ceiling that will be a rectangle around this inside piece and here this piece right here, which I've already done. And since the levels are 10 feet apart and this offset is only 8, I changed it to 9 feet so that it, there was a foot for the flooring, material. I'm going to cancel out of this because I already have my ceiling. You can tell I'm going to use Control Tab. Control Tab will help you to cycle through the views that you have open. So there's that piece right there that's up against the flooring that becomes my chipboard. And then I used component, place the component to place a couple of recessed lights here. So let's go ahead and render this view. we can use the render little teapot icon, and I'll change the setting to medium, and instead of using exterior sun only, we'll use interior sun and artificial. What I'd like to do that's a little different is we can establish an image that will be in the background. So if you find maybe woods that you'd like to display, you can go online and find an image that will be the background, what you'll see through these windows. So as you can see here, I've taken the check mark out of closed dialog box when rendering with the Lawrence Tech laptop. It's taken about 5 minutes to render on medium. And what I did was I found an image of some trees online, and then under background you can change your style to image and then browse to find that image and decide on stretching it or making it a smaller image to be viewed through the window. And so I wanted to show you this because it first showed the rendering of the image itself, and now part of the building and the components are coming through that graphic. So I'll go ahead and save it to the project as a new view, and then go back to the model. You can use a cityscape if you'd like to. If you have a large drawing and you want to only render a small part of it to check out the graphics, you can put a check mark in region, and this red box here becomes the only part that you will render, leaving you more time to review it. So here I'm going to go ahead and render again. It gives us a smaller version of the larger print at a quicker speed. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this here and take the check mark out of region. When we render, another important part of the rendering dialog box here, once you render, so even if I did low and I went through the rendering, is where it says image adjust exposure. So even after you've created a rendering, you can adjust the exposure, and it's amazing how much you can do just in this one section here. So I can then pick adjust exposure, and here's the exposure control. You can here make the rendering brighter or darker, that exposure value. You have here highlights that you can give it. We can darken our shadows if we wanted to make it a little darker, and we have this white point that makes it feel warmer. So just by changing slightly the settings in this dialog box for the exposure control, you can lighten up some of the areas of your rendering. You can also save it to the project or export it, and when you export it, it creates a JPEG file of that view. There are two more graphic presentation tools I'd like to go over in this module, and then we'll come back to them towards the end of the semester. So for the level 1 floor plan, let's right click and pick duplicate view, and then pick duplicate. And then we're going to double click here on copy of level, right click and rename this color coded plan. Color coded floor plan or color coded plan, and then pick OK. So the concept is that we have room tags that can establish here information about that room. So click on, in the architecture panel, click on room, and then go to one of your rooms. You'll see the tag. You could click here, here, and here. This is a smaller plan. And then you can click inside here, this tag, and click again on the title to change the name of that room. Now we can go to color scheme in the properties panel and pick where it says none, so that we can change the category at the top left to rooms and then highlight name. And this is the color scheme by default, but you can change the colors if you'd like for each one of these rooms. I'll go ahead and pick up OK. And so now we have here our color-coded plan that we can work with. If we want to hide these section marks, we can hide in category just for this view. And then go to the Annotate tab, and on the far right side you'll see Color Fill Legend. If you click on Color Fill Legend, it will automatically pick up for you here those colors and establish a key that you can use to color code your plan. If you select your legend and pick Edit Scheme up at the top, you can change the title of your schedule or your room legend here and establish different colors for your color-coded plan. Also, in the color-coded plan, notice that the color didn't go through some of the furniture, so you can go over to the Properties panel and change where it says Color Scheme Location, change it to Foreground, and pick Apply. The entire area will take on that color. Now let's go to level 1 and take a look at creating a walkthrough. You can go to the View tab and go under 3D View and pick Walkthrough. As you pick points, you're establishing the path for the walkthrough. So maybe you are starting here, and as you click points, you're walking through here this space and into another space, and then turning the corner and going, outside if you want to continue with that. You pick the green check mark to finish it, but you can see in the options bar we're creating a perspective. The offset is 5.6, which is kind of eye level, and we're on level 1. So I'll pick Finish Walkthrough, and there it is. So now we can edit the walkthrough, and notice that there are 300 frames. So we want to go to frame 1, and that will be back here at the beginning of the walkthrough chain. Notice in the project browser, the walkthrough is created. We can double click on that to see the beginning of the walkthrough, and then pick Edit Walkthrough, and you'll see that we have a play button here to play the different frames. It's going kind of fast because of the speed that I have it set to. In the properties, you can scroll down and pick Other Walkthrough Frames, and in this dialog box you can change your total frames, which we started with 300, and your frames per second. So instead of having 300 frames, and I believe it was 15 per second by default, I changed the total frames to 1001 per second. And now when I play the walkthrough, it's slower and a little bit smoother than the original default walkthrough. This can also be rendered, but it will take up some speed. It will regenerate. And if you press escape, you can interrupt the walkthrough and it will go back to the beginning. So if I make it realistic and then I play it, in even the shadows would be even slower. It will take some regeneration time to process. I'll escape this. I'm going to turn my shadows off. I'll turn my shadows off. And if we take a look here at this walkthrough again, under the application menu here at the top left, you can go to export and over to images and animations to export an image or to export your walkthrough here as AVI file. So you can determine the frames and pick OK and then save it as an AVI file. And this is optional for you. This is not required for the class. But if you have a presentation, it makes for a good way to show three-dimensionally walk through your design. If you change your visual display back to something like hidden, if you use hidden line, then under visual style and graphic display options, you can use silhouette to pick something like wide lines and pick apply so that you can see kind of a darker image of the outline for the silhouette wide lines. And now when you play your walkthrough, we've changed the frames and you can visually see it with a little bit better graphics and the line quality.